All right, let's dive right in. The science of you. And that really gets to the core question, doesn't it? Why are we all so incredibly different from one another?
I mean, have you ever really thought about it? Why you can be a total wizard at math, but you can't draw a stick figure to save your life? Or maybe you look at your brother or sister and just think, are we even from the same planet? You grew up in the same house, but you're complete polar opposites. So what's the deal? Well, the answer to all of this lies in a really cool concept psychologists call individual differences. And here's the thing, our differences aren't just a random collection of quirks. Turns out, there's a whole science, a hidden structure, to what makes you, you. This quote from Dr. Gunvant Shah just nails it. Every person is unique and unparalleled. Even their thumbprint is different from billions of others. Wow. From your fingerprint to your personality, you are literally one of a kind. But how on earth do scientists even begin to make sense of all that variety?
Okay, so to get a handle on it, they basically look at everything through two main lenses. It gives us a framework to organize this incredible, messy, human variety into something we can actually analyze.
All right, the first lens is called inter-individual differences. Inter as in between. It's pretty straightforward. It's just comparing you to someone else. You know, you versus your friend. Why are you taller? Why are they better at public speaking? Then there's intra-individual differences. Intra as in within. This one is all about you, comparing the different skills you have. It's that whole great at math but terrible at drawing thing. You really need to look through both of these lenses to get the full picture.
So what exactly are these differences that we're measuring? Well, they can be broken down into 5 key areas. You can think of them as the 5 fundamental building blocks of your unique identity.
Okay, let's run through them. First, the obvious one, physical differences, like your height and appearance. Second, intellectual differences, things like your IQ and how you solve problems. Third, your emotional traits, like being super calm versus having a quick temper. Fourth is your social style. Think introvert versus extrovert. And finally, your interests, the hobbies and passions that really drive you. But here's the crucial part. These aren't separate boxes. They all mix together. Your emotional state totally affects your social life, and your intellectual strengths often guide your interests. It's that unique blend that makes you who you are.
But all of this leads to the biggest question of all. Where do these differences actually come from? And that brings us to one of the oldest and most famous debates in all of psychology.
It's the ultimate showdown, nature versus nurture. Are we born this way with our personalities basically pre-programmed in our DNA? Or are we made this way, completely shaped by our environment and experiences? Let's look at the evidence for both sides.
First up, team nature. This argument says it all comes down to heredity. The idea is that our core abilities, our intelligence, and even our personality traits are passed down to us through our genes.
Some of the earliest evidence for this came from Sir Francis Galton. He started studying the family trees of very successful people, and he noticed a pattern. Talent seemed to run in the family. Famous artists, brilliant scientists, and powerful leaders often had kids who also achieved great things. This was a huge clue that genetics could play a powerful role.
You know the old saying, like father, like son. It perfectly sums up the core idea of the nature argument. And we see it all the time, don't we? A kid who has their parents' musical talent, or their sharp wit. It just seems to make sense. But that's only half of the story.
Because on the other side of the debate, you've got team nurture. This is the idea that our environment is the primary architect of who we become. And environment here means everything, your family, your education, your culture, your friendships, the whole shebang.
And this is a really powerful way to think about it. Imagine 2 identical twins. They share the exact same DNA. Now, what if one was raised in a bustling, creative city and the other grew up in a quiet, small town? They're going to develop very, very different personalities, skills, and values. That's the power of nurture in action.
So the answer is probably a mix of both, right? Well, yeah, but the debate gets even more complex because sometimes biology is just undeniable. In fact, there's a truly mind-blowing case study that shows just how powerfully our biology can dictate our behavior, almost like a light switch. Okay, get this. It's a true story. There was a perfectly normal, calm man who suddenly started committing violent crimes, completely out of character. Doctors eventually found a tumor in his brain. They removed it, and his old, calm personality returned. Instantly. It was like it never happened. But years later, the violent behavior came back. And when they checked, you guessed it, the tumor had grown back in the exact same spot. His personality was literally being turned on and off by a biological switch. It's a pretty chilling reminder of how deeply tied we are to the physical hardware in our heads. So, nature, nurture, brain tumors, this is all fascinating, but why does any of it actually matter in our day-to-day lives? Because this isn't just theory. Understanding our differences has profound, real-world applications.
I mean, think about it. It can help us create schools where every single kid can thrive based on their own learning style. It can guide you toward a career that actually fits your unique skills. It helps parents nurture each child's specific needs. And maybe, most importantly, it gives you the tools to understand yourself on a much, much deeper level. So I'll just leave you with this question. Knowing that our differences are this incredibly complex tapestry of both nature and nurture, how might that change the way you look at your own strengths and weaknesses, or how you relate to the unique, different, and amazing people in your life? It's something to think about.
This is the brief on individual differences in educational psychology. No two humans, not even siblings, are exactly alike. And figuring out these unique physical, mental, and emotional quirks is literally the foundation for effective teaching and learning. First, we've got to look at the two core ways we actually differ. You've got inter-individual differences, which is how you differ from someone else, and intra-individual differences, which are the variations within yourself. Think of it kind of like a video game character's stat sheet. A student might have totally maxed out stats in math, but, very low stats in art. Second, what actually sets those mental stat sheets? Well, it comes down to a mix of nature, nurture, and biology. Genetics pass down intelligence, and your upbringing shapes your habits, but biology, specifically hormones from our endocrine glands, plays a massive role too. Could a physical change actually rewire your entire personality? Absolutely. The source highlights this completely calm person who turned aggressive and criminal simply because of a brain tumor, and then reverted right back to normal once it was removed. Finally, what does this actually look like in the classroom? Teachers kind of have to become detectives, pinpointing gifted or struggling students so they can really tailor their teaching. This means ditching the rigid lectures for audiovisual methods, trading standardized tests for flexible evaluations, and giving personalized career guidance based on a kid's unique profile. Because every student is biologically and environmentally unique, true education requires adapting the system to fit the individual, rather than forcing the individual to fit the system.